name is Nicola Lacey and I'm School Professor of Law, Gender and Social Policy in the Law Department. I teach criminal law and Introduction to Legal System to first-year students. So I'm going to talk about how to write a really good essay. And I'm going to assume that you've already done your reading and you've made some really good notes. You're all ready to go. And you've got a question. And the first piece of advice is read the question really carefully. That sounds obvious, but here's why it matters. It matters because the question hasn't been set to catch you out. The question has been set to allow you to carve out a nice clear focus amid all the issues that you've written about in your notes and that you've been reading about. And so the key thing at first is to read that question, think about it carefully, and in your mind, break it down into its component parts and decide which ones you feel you have something to say about. The other side of that is the obvious pitfall that you can make if you don't go through that process. And that is to see a key word within the question which relates to something you know about and to decide, great, this is about X, Y or Z, and I'm going to tell whoever's marking the essay as much as I can possibly remember about that topic. That is not what you're being asked to do. You're being asked to really answer the question that's been set. So with that in mind, the next stage is really to start organising those components of the question into an answer. And the best way really to do this, in my view, is to write an essay plan. So that means deciding which are the really important points that you want to make in response to that question. Among those, which are the most important, to which you want to give priority in terms of both space and perhaps the order of the argument. And you can jot those down so that in effect what you're aiming for is a nice map for yourself which can guide you through the writing process. When you're planning the structure of your essay, try to aim for simplicity. Don't have too complicated a structure. You can't cover every relevant point. Your job is to decide which points are most important and then organise them into a logical structure. So again, what you're trying to avoid here is the pitfall of giving the reader a lot of information but without structuring it clearly. So now you've decided on that structure, the next logical step really is to write a nice clear introduction. An introduction that conveys to the reader that nice map that you've made for yourself. And bear in mind that it will be good to achieve an introduction which actually invites the reader into the essay, that makes them want to read what you have to say about this interesting question. So again, don't just write everything you know. Think about what your argument is and explain in your introduction to the reader how you're going to tackle the question, what order you're going to do it in, and invite them in that way. Once you've got your essay plan and your introduction, you're really in a very good position to start writing your essay. And the only key thing you have to remember now is just to stick to that map. Just use that nice, clear, logical structure, stick to it, and you'll find that your essay is really quite easy and hopefully enjoyable to write. Don't forget, though, to leave a little time at the end to write a brief conclusion, probably just a paragraph, which reminds the reader of what the really key points are that you hope to have made convincingly in your essay. Just two final points. First of all, essays, almost by definition, are set on difficult topics, topics on which reasonable people disagree about the right answer. There isn't one right answer to your essay. Your job isn't to come up with the right answer, it's to decide which answer or which arguments you find strongest and most appealing. find the best way of setting those arguments out and put the strongest case you can for the answer you want to defend. And don't forget that that does involve taking into account the points that can be made on the other side of the argument. Very finally, none of this is set in stone. Some people prefer to write their introduction before their essay plan. Some people integrate those two parts of the process. It really doesn't matter. The most important thing is to think carefully about the structure of your answer, produce a framework to remind you of what that is, and stick to it.